It is the second intermission of the Avs and Isles game, and Matt Duchene has been traded, and we now know the official details. In a trade that sends Matt Duchene to Ottawa, Kyle Turris to Nashville, and then the Avs get 3 prospects in Shane Bowers, Vladislav Kamenev, and Sam Girard, as well as Andrew Hammond as a goalie, a first and a third round pick from Ottawa, and a second round pick from Nashville. Let's start with the Nashville side for the Avs with Sam Girard, the young D-man. Just 19 years old, he already has played 5 NHL games with the Predators this year, as well as a couple of AHL games under his belt. Originally taken in the second round of 2016, Girard has 2 point-per-game seasons in the QMJHL and is touted as a highly offensive D-man with fantastic skating. There still are some question marks about his actual defensive ability, but if he can round it out, there have been comparisons made to the likes of Sami Vatanen. Given that he has gotten in some NHL games this year, it's clear the Predators have valued him pretty highly, as the other option for him would have been to go back to the QMJHL. I don't think there's any doubt we will see him on the Avs next season, but for the current season, it's kind of up in the air. Since he is on an ELC with 5 games under his belt, if the Avs do send him back to the Q, his contract could slide. On the other hand, with Anton Lindholm injured and depending on how they feel about Mironov, they could slot him into the roster immediately. Next up is Vladislav Kamenev, and I do think he is the player that has the best chance of jumping into the Avs roster immediately. Drafted out of the second round in 2014, he is a fairly big and a bit older prospect at age 21 and coming in at 6'2" and currently 185 pounds. Despite being a bigger player, he is still known as more of a setup man and has posted good offensive numbers in 2 years of AHL play so far. He does have a pair of NHL games under his belt, though he has not scored yet. However, with the Avs making a hole, losing Duchene, as well as all of the injuries to Compher, Jost, and now it appears Como may be injured as well, it's pretty clear there are some holes in the lineup, and a bit older and more established prospect could slot right in immediately. We could even see him in Sweden coming up next week. The Avs also get that second round pick from Nashville, which this whole package is of course tilted towards the future for the Avalanche, and as much as I love Duchene, this is probably the correct decision for the Avalanche and shows that they have a vision of moving this team toward the future. Moving on to the Ottawa side, the prospect we got was Shane Bowers. He was taken in the first round, 28th overall of this most recent draft. As a center, he is also 6'2", like Kamenev, and is known for playing a great full 200-foot game. Full two-way player, can score but also covers his bases defensively. Perfect scenario here, I think, would be if the Avs get Compher version 2.0. A little bit bigger, perhaps a little bit stronger than Compher, but that's the general idea. Bowers is currently playing at BU in his first year in the NCAA, so that's another prospect on the Avs radar we can watch there, along with our other college prospects, so it should be a fun year to keep up with him. The one sort of oddity in this trade is Andrew Hammond, a 30-year-old goalie who is essentially an AHL goalie despite the few runs he's had in the NHL. However, I do understand why the Avs did it. They take a little bit of cap off of Ottawa, as well as they set themselves up with an emergency goalie. If the worst case scenario happens and one of Bernier or Varley does get hurt, Hammond can come up to the NHL and easily fill in to where we don't have to test Spencer Martin, who still needs to get good quality games down in the AHL. And finally, we get Ottawa's first and third round picks as well. You have to be happy with the pick haul here. The Avs really need to build for picks if they're looking towards the future, fill out their prospect pool, and set them up long term going forward. Ultimately, for a futures package, I do think I like this trade for the Avalanche. The first, second, and third we've already talked about. With both Girard and Kamenev, you have 2 players that could potentially jump into the roster immediately, and you would expect to stay in the roster in the near future. And then with Bowers, he may be a little bit further down the line, but still someone you should expect to get into the NHL, being a first-round pick. And I might have liked to see them get some kind of prospect instead of Hammond, but again, I do understand where they were coming from in picking him up. On the emotional side, this trade is definitely a little bit tougher than on the return side. Duchene going to Ottawa means we get to see him back-to-back in Sweden, and you know he's going to come angry and want to score on his old team. I've watched the Avs since they came to Colorado in 1995. As a kid, I never owned a jersey. The first jersey I ever got as an adult was this one. So clearly, I'm a big fan of Duchene. It's sad to see him go, and I do wish there was a way it could have worked out for the Avs, but ultimately, I think this was the best decision for the team. That is the end of this trade initial review. Thank you for watching. In fact, there is a game still going on, so you can expect a game review coming up in a little bit here. I'm Rudo3, and I'm going to miss you, Maddie.